Diana Award is a youth charity that really focuses on young people. It's about making sure that every young person thrives, irrespective of where they've come from. If we flip back at, we are a legacy to Princess Diana. And when you think about Princess Diana, the thing about her is it doesn't matter how old you are, or if you were here when she was here, or you've heard about her from your grandparents, your parents. She was someone who championed people or causes that were unseen. She looked out for those perhaps who mainstream society didn't often, that kind of sidelined. Mm-hmm. And so the Diana Award really follows on from that legacy, and it's about championing every single child, knowing that every child deserves the right to thrive. And so our work revolves around 3 core areas. It's about unlocking the potential of every child. It's making sure that every child, we create opportunity for everyone. And opportunities, it's not just a luxury item for some. But also it's about inspiring change. We have to continue in her legacy. It was about change and pushing the boundaries around change. So we also make sure that whilst we create these opportunities, we unlock the potential of young people, but we are also championing and empowering young people to be at the forefront of leading change. Wonder why businesses don't do more to when we think about the workforce should represent society. And so when businesses are thinking about their workforce, they have to think, the first question every business should be asking themselves is, who's missing around our table, who's not here, and then why are they not here? And part of that why would look at what are your practices. It's not legislation, because legislation talks about equality. We know that every business will tick the box around legislation and policy. It's about culture and practice. When you drill down to your organization, what is your organization's value? What are the practices that are happening every day, and what's the culture of the place? Is your culture one that excludes some? For example, I've heard, I know sometimes businesses have a culture of, maybe less in the pandemic, or actually stuff happens after work is when the real stuff happens, when we all gather together in the pub. But whilst you're doing that after work pub meets, who's not there? Who's excluded? What about the mom who has to go home and pick up the child? What about the person perhaps who doesn't like a drink? What is the culture? And so I think that constantly businesses have to look at the culture and the practice and who's been excluded by the culture and the practice. And really, if anything, the pandemic has shown us is that we can work flexibly. We can hybrid. And I'm hoping that businesses will completely adopt this. And even as we emerge out of this pandemic, that we do not lose some of the good things that we've learned about the hybrid style of working and the flexibility that allows people to say, actually, this is my work and I can spread my work how I want. As long as we become more focused on results rather than being fixated with the timesheet. Do you know what I mean? Or with the time, like we're 9 to 10 culture. Why? Mm-hmm. What is the productivity? I think that businesses miss a massive trick when you exclude women, because women multitask. They understand how to juggle stuff, and I think businesses miss a lot out of that. They miss out a lot of that whole ability to bring empathy and compassion into the workplace. And if we look at it, this is something that our clients are asking for. Clients do not want to be a number. They don't want to be figures. They don't just want to be data. They want to feel like you are able to empathize with them and understand their journey and tailor your business to fit around them. And therefore, any business that's not doing this is missing the trick. I'll tell you a little bit about I'm really proud of the iwill Fund. I co-chair the fund actually with a young person, and the iwill Fund is it's a sum of two different pots. So the DCMS and the Big Lottery brought together money really around creating more opportunities for young people across the country to get involved in shaping their society, their communities. And so for me, when I talk about creating opportunities for young people, I am excited that we have the potential to do that through the iwill Fund. We're able to look at, especially if you think about the pandemic, we've just had the pandemic. Young people have experienced, depending on sometimes where they live, they've had various experiences. We need to build back society. There is a degree of building back that needs to happen. And for us through the iwill Fund, we want young people to be at the center of those decisions. We want young people to take the lead. And for us at the iwill Fund, that's really our mission, for young people to be at the center. But also we have the funds to support some of that work. So as iwill, I've got my funder hat on, where we look for organizations who will bring young people together to create change. One thing I firmly believe is that we just cannot let the world continue to turn as it's always turned. If anything, the pandemic showed us the huge inequalities that exist in society. Maybe things that some groups have known for a long time, but some didn't. But the pandemic was kind of the perfect storm that showed us all of that inequality. And what we want to do, what we continue to do through the iwill Fund, is support young people, encourage many more young people to help reshape their society. So yeah, it's an exciting role, and but the other thing actually from the iwill is the learning. We invest in learning, we invest in data and insights, because we want to understand what works. We want to understand how our society is changing and the role that young people play. The result of that investment in learning has a two-pronged approach. One, it means that actually across society and outside of the third sector, for businesses, we're able to show businesses what works. We were having a conversation about diverse workforce. For example, we can begin to show businesses the impact that young people are having in society, and the importance of employing young people into the workforce, because there's evidence that shows that impact. We also show to businesses actually how businesses must get more involved in local community, and not only think national, but to think more locally. Yeah, so it's an interesting role, which I love dearly. And yeah, I have a wonderful co-chair who's a young person as well. That's a great topic. One of the things I firmly believe around social mobility is the talk around things that we do to people that are not socially mobile. And yet actually my challenge is let's flip the coin the other way around. What do we need to do across society that allows people to progress in life? It's not, because if we look at data shows us actually that academically, young people, particularly young people from minority groups, are performing much better academically than any previous time, and also interestingly than some of their white peers. But for some reason, that academic performance doesn't often translate into employment. So we need to look at what's happening in employment. I do not firmly believe that the bulk of the problem is with academic achievement, because that's improving. That's not to say we stop investing in academic, because we do need to continue to invest in that. But I think we need to look at the other end of the scale. What happens with our employment? What happens with progression? What is it that breaks that link when a person would graduate with a 2-1 and will get into employment? Maybe they get into employment, yet they don't progress. And for me, my theory is this. Let's pause that thought for a second. Let's flip back at the very affluent young person in his family or her family background. What makes that child thrive? Let's look at the life of a child who's thriving, who is very, very socially mobile. What do they have? They have great parents, maybe, who are not necessarily parenting, but who open up networks for that child. They have great conversations around the dinner table because people come around the house and they have all this intelligence, they have all these professors, all these people, great people who come. That child is part of that conversation. They're expanding their knowledge, they're expanding their networks, right? They probably have lots of access to extracurricular activities that enhances their skills because they do badminton, they probably go sailing. Let's look at all of those amazing opportunities that they have, opportunities that help build character, opportunities that help improve skills. If you put these two things together, you're looking at what makes a person thrive sometimes is the access they have, the networks, the additional opportunities to build both personal and professional skills. Those are the ingredients that make a person thrive. Let's take those and let's bring it back to the person who perhaps isn't as socially mobile. So they achieve great academically, but maybe they don't have great networks. So they have no Uncle X who can give you an internship, or my dad's friend is the chief exec of this, go and do an internship there. They don't have perhaps access to lots of extracurricular activities, which is also one of the great benefits of the iwill fund, so that young people can build those extracurricular skills through volunteering and youth social action. To me, I believe that if we're going to change the conversation around social mobility, we need to invest in those about 2 or 3 key things. One, mentoring, because mentoring has that potential to offer those additional dialogues and guidance that a lot of affluent kids have access to just from those dinner table conversations. Mentoring has the ability to open up networks to a young person. When you've mentored a young person, and if I've mentored a young person, I'm more likely to say, come along and volunteer with me, or I speak to my friends about that person, and that person begins to build their own network. That person begins to have experiences of volunteering or internships that builds their personal and professional skills. I feel like we almost need to mandate mentoring as a rite of passage for every young person, because it should never be a luxury item for the few. 2 is that opportunity. How do we make sure that young people, again, coming back to one of the key things that we do at the Diana Award around creating opportunities, making sure that opportunity is not about who I know. Opportunities become accessible, work experience, opportunities to try different things and explore, because those are the things that help you hone your own skills and also help you decide what career I really, really want to get involved with. But most important, I think the final thing is also across businesses to look at our own internal practices, our culture, but always think, who is not on our table? Who are we missing? They might not look like us, they might not talk like us, but they deserve a place, right? We mustn't. And how do we recruit and progress people in a way that we're not looking for people to just replace us, and we're not trying to duplicate ourselves?